Alright, I'm going to show you guys how to make a solution. We're going to make the solution of sodium chloride that we had done the calculations for in the previous screencast. So when I make a solution, I always use a volumetric flask. This is a volumetric flask. I don't know how well you can see on the camera, but this is a 50 milliliter volumetric flask. If I measure right up to this line, which is a little hard to see, this blue line where my finger is 50 milliliters. So I only use this for making 50 milliliters of solution. If I wanted to make a different amount, say 200 milliliters, I would use a larger 200 milliliter volumetric flask. Okay, so my first step is to mass out my sodium chloride. I have already calculated that I need 1.0 grams of sodium chloride. So I'm going to zero my balance, have the sodium chloride here, and I'm going to get one. I'd like to get as close as I can to 1.00 grams. Remember, if I put too much in, I never put any back in the original container, right? I put the excess somewhere else, but not back in this container that I'm massing from. Almost there. Oops. It just sort of jumped on me. I went a little bit over. I'm at 1.06 grams. So I usually just use an extra weigh boat. I'll take and see if I can get a little bit of this sodium chloride out. 1.03. Takes a little time, but just try to be patient. You want to do as good a job as you can, right? So, perfect, 1.00. All right, so I know this is sodium chloride. I know I can throw that in the garbage, so I'm going to do that. If you have something else other than sodium chloride, make sure you find out whether you can throw it in the garbage before you do so, but you basically want to dispose of the extra. All right, so I'm going to take my volumetric flask. The first thing I do is put just a little bit of water on the bottom. I do that because sometimes the powder will stick to the bottom. Even if you put water on top, it sort of creates a bubble and it's hard to make it dissolve. To pour in my sodium chloride, I'm going to use a funnel. There are two types. There are two major types. This is a liquid funnel on my left hand and a powder funnel on my right hand. And you can see the powder funnel has a bigger opening so that the powder doesn't get stuck in this long neck. And it's really hard to recover from that if that happens. So I'm going to use the one with the wider neck for dry substances. I'll sort of line that. It doesn't fit in my volumetric flask, so I'm just sort of holding it on the top. And then I can kind of bend my weigh boat so it pours nicely. Pour this in there. And then remember, I masked it out really carefully, so I want to be sure I get all the sodium chloride out of the weigh boat. So I put a little water in just to make sure I got it all. Pour that through my funnel. And if any's stuck in the funnel, you can pour a little water in here just to make sure you got it all. All right, I'm not going to fill it up all the way just now. Remember, I am always making a solution with deionized water. It says distilled. It's actually deionized. I'm going to fill it about halfway now. And the reason is I want to dissolve my solid before I fill it all the way up. And if I fill it up too far, I can't really swish the water around very well. So I fill it up about halfway and swish this around until the sodium chloride dissolves. Now I know sodium chloride is really soluble, so even though I can't see very well in there, I'm pretty sure it's dissolved. But you want to make sure you have no solid left, so keep swirling until it's all dissolved. And now I'm going to fill it up to the blue line. So I can go pretty fast. As I approach the blue line, I want to slow down and make sure I don't go over. If I go over the line, I got to throw it out and start from scratch. So there's sort of no recovering from that. So once you get close, slow down. So you remember that water creates sort of a curved top when it's in a narrow container called the meniscus. I want the bottom of that meniscus to rest right on the blue line. So I'm pretty close now. I'm going to have to bend down so I can put my eye right at the level of the blue line. When I do that, the camera's going to go below the counter. So hang tight just for a second while I measure this out. All right, so I got it just right. I am going to put a cap on my volumetric flask. If you don't have a cap, put some parafilm. Do not ever just use your finger though, right? I'm going to invert it a few times just so I know my solution's well mixed. And that's it. So my last step is to label my solution. You guys, I think, will be saving your solutions in another container. So you'll pour it into another bottle and then label that. I'm going to store mine in here, so I'm going to label this volumetric flask. And when I make a solution, I already made these out. I always label it with the concentration and the identity of the substance. So in this case, 0.02 grams per milliliter of NaCl. And then I also always put my initials and the date that I made it. So this is good lab practice. That way, if somebody else finds the solution, they know exactly what it is, how old it is, whether it's hazardous, and all sorts of things like that. And that is all you need to know about making a solution.